It was during a cold, lonely drive one night that a creative spark was lit and one of the greatest characters in cinema comedy was created. That being none other than Austin Powers.
Yeah, baby! Yeah.
Austin Powers, the groovy, swinging 1960s super spy created by Mike Myers. Nope, that's Michael Myers. I mean this guy. Austin Powers. Women want him, men want to be him. And when his arch nemesis, Dr. Evil, also played by Myers, escapes in a rocket, Powers decides to have himself cryogenically frozen so he can take on Dr. Evil when he returns. Where Powers is then thawed out and brought back into the 90s, where the world has now changed and the swinging 60s are long gone, where Powers tries to comically adapt into the 90s with the help of his fellow agent, Miss Kensington, played by Liz Hurley, in this wonderfully enjoyable classic spy spoof that pays a loving homage to the 60s. Yeah, baby! Today we are looking into 10 things that you didn't know about the first Austin Powers movie, International Man of Mystery, which came out in 1997. So sit back and get ready for this movie to be your bag as we check it out.
Oh, behave.
Number 10. Austin Powers was created during a lonely drive home one night. It was after taking part in hockey practice one evening that Mike Myers found himself driving home without a care in the world when suddenly the 1960 song The Look of Love started playing on his car radio. The famous song of old was produced by Burt Bacharach and sung by Dusty Springfield, and definitely a product of its time, a more carefree swinging 60s era. Listening to the song got the gear turning in Myers' head as he wondered, where have all the swingers gone? And thus Austin Powers was created, a reflection of the swinging 60s in the modern 90s world. Myers took inspiration from comedy and other British institutions his father, whom was from Liverpool, had introduced him to, such as Peter Sellers, The Goodies, The Beatles, Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, Monty Python, and of course James Bond. Myers would go on to say that Austin Powers was made out of pure love of James Bond, and it seems fitting that Austin Powers, a James Bond spoof, would start thanks to the song The Look of Love, as the song was made for Casino Royale, the 1967 version, which itself was a James Bond spoof. But I do think that Austin Powers goes beyond being just a James Bond spoof, as it feels more like a parody of 1960s pop culture itself. Number 9. Before the movie, there was the rock band. Most people's first introduction to Austin Powers was probably his first movie, International Man of Mystery. However, before arriving in the motion picture medium, his first venture into mainstream was in the 1960s inspired rock band Ming T, where Myers and fellow band members all took on mock-up 1960s personas, and thus Austin Powers was created. The band was formed in the early 90s, shortly after Myers left Saturday Night Live, and the band's most famous song was one that was simply called BBC. And we actually have Myers' wife at the time, Robin Rouzan, to thank for Powers to make his leaps and bounds onto the big screen, as she encouraged him to take the persona further and to write a movie script based on the character. So yeah, before there was Austin Powers the movie hero, there was Austin Powers the pop star. Number 8. Talent behind the scenes. Myers had written the Austin Powers Man of Mystery script in 1995, and New Line Cinema, who at the time were most well known for being the home of Freddy Krueger and the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, came on board to distribute the film. The movie's director was Meet the Parents and Dinner for Schmucks director Jay Roach, who prior to Austin Powers wrote a very different kind of film, with the serious action movie Blown Away. Roach seems to have played a big part in the creative development of Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery, as initially he had some issues with the script and gave it back to Myers with 10 pages of notes on how the movie could be improved, of which Myers said did improve the movie. And Roach is actually the husband of Myers' Ming T co-band member Susanna Hoffs. And interestingly, on a rather random level, Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery was co-produced by Ghost actress Demi Moore. Yeah, weird, huh? It seems that in between starring in Striptease and G.I. Jane, she took time out to produce a comedy classic. As you do. Who knows? Maybe she took advice from her Disclosure co-star Michael Douglas, who also had a habit of randomly producing movies in the 80s and 90s. Number 7. Groovy casting possibilities. One of the most memorable aspects of Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery is Mike Myers' dual role, with him playing both the movie's hero, Austin Powers, and its villain, Dr. Evil, who, by the way, was designed on Donald Pleasance as Blofeld, as he was seen in the James Bond movie You Only Live Twice. However, Myers originally didn't plan on starring in both roles. His initial choice for the part of Dr. Evil was actually Jim Carrey, which would have frankly been awesome. I can see Carrey taking on a more cable guy approach to the part. However, Carrey turned the role down in favour of starring in Liar Liar instead. And Carrey wasn't the only actor to turn down starring in Austin Powers, as stand-up comedian Colin Quinn claims he was offered the role of Dr. Evil's son, Scott Evil, but turned it down as he was working on a script for a movie called Midnight Mass, which never ended up getting made. And he has since said that he regretted his decision to not starring in the movie. So instead, the part went to Robot Chicken creator / Family Guy voice artist / Pennywise survivor, Seth Green. Number 6. A great deal of the movie was made up on the spot. Austin Powers has many memorable and famous lines.
Ooh, do I make you horny? Randy, do I make you horny, baby? Yeah, do I?
In fact, Austin Powers might just be the most quotable comedy movie of the 90s, as Austin Powers' comical quotes and dialogue would actually go on to become famous catchphrases, cemented in pop culture.
Allow myself to introduce myself.
However, Myers claims that a great deal of the movie was in fact improvised, about 30 to 40% to be precise. Even the movie's director Jay Roach backs this claim up when he told The Hollywood Reporter that most of the original script for the movie wasn't used due to the improvising provided by the cast. One famous scene that was improvised was the shh back and forth between Scott and Dr. Evil characters, which just so happened when Seth Green and Myers were going back and forth with each other while filming.
But, all I'm saying, they're gonna get a...
So who knows, maybe some of your favourite Austin Powers moments were probably just made up on a whim, right there on the spot while filming. And I love the fact that something that someone can just randomly make up on the spot can become a staple of pop culture. Number 5. Filming locations. Despite the fact that Austin Powers is an English super spy and that a lot of the movie is set in the UK, absolutely none of Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery was filmed in Britain. The scenes involving the streets of London were in fact filmed on the Paramount backlot in Los Angeles, and most of the movie was filmed around Las Vegas and other parts of Nevada. The fact that Austin Powers was meant to be a British comedy, or rather a homage to a British comedy, but was actually filmed in the States, was even the subject of an in-joke in the sequel, when Austin Powers is driving on a highway and makes comment on how the English scenery looks a lot like California. So at least the production was self-aware. Number 4. Powers vs. Bond. Despite being a Bond spoof, there didn't seem to be any tensions between the two franchises. In fact, the Bond legacy at times seemed to even embrace Austin Powers, with Mike Myers guest starring in several James Bond documentaries in the late 90s, on the account that he was an avid Bond fan. And Myers even opened first James Bond Sean Connery's AFF Lifetime Achievement Award special. The Austin Powers movies came out during the Pierce Brosnan run of Bond films, and there never seemed to be any animosity between the two. Or so we thought, as in 2014, current James Bond star Daniel Craig said that the films had to go darker when referring to his Bond films, and that the myth had to be dismantled, and the days of old with Bond using humour in the movies had to stop, all thanks to Austin Powers. To which Craig said Mike Myers effed us. So lately, if you've been noticing that the Bond movies are considerably dark, that's apparently because of Austin Powers. Funny how Daniel Craig claims that the humour was scrapped so it wouldn't be too much like an Austin Powers movie, but the James Bond films themselves still used an Austin Powers plot twist by making Bond and Blofeld brothers, aka Austin Powers and Dr. Evil. Number 3, the story behind those glasses. Austin Powers' attire is based on the English mod fashion look of the 1960s. And despite the fact that he has several different variations of this look, one thing that always seems to be consistent is those thick framed glasses, as the character is never seen without them. So where did the inspiration for these otherwise nerdy looking glasses come from? Well, Myers took inspiration from British actor Michael Caine, whose career really took off in the 60s, and despite the fact that in the 60s that style of glasses wasn't popular or in fashion, Caine still managed to rock them as well as being a heartthrob. So that's where the Austin Powers glasses come from. The gag is, he is still a sex symbol despite those big glasses. A joke in the movie, but a reality as far as Caine is concerned. And of course Michael Caine would go on to star as Austin Powers, his father, in Goldmember, complete with those thick frame glasses. Very fitting. Number 2, the not so groovy R rating. Initially, when Austin Powers came out, it was hit with a hard R rating. Like, how did a fun, goofy movie get such an intense rating? I mean, yeah, Austin Powers had innuendo and rude humour sprinkled throughout, but no worse than other comedies of which get PG-13 ratings. Well, the thing that really ticked off the MPAA was the implied nudity scenes, with objects cleverly covering Austin Powers' modesty. Even though you can't see anything, it still drove the MPAA nuts, despite the lack of, well, nuts. Director Roach had to fight to keep the scene in. However, he still had to make further cuts to the movie in order for it to reach a PG-13 rating, and thus the US cut of the movie is a safer PG-13 one. However, luckily here in Australia, we have the uncut version in all its groovy, swinging glory. And to be honest, growing up with this version, I just can't imagine a safer, sanitized version. The idea of such a cut makes me really sad. Number 1, Austin Powers took a while to take off. Despite the fact that Austin Powers would go on to become one of the biggest franchises in the late 90s and early 2000s, its huge success wasn't instant. In fact, it took a little while for the groovy Austin Powers bug to hit moviegoers, as when Austin Powers International Man of Mystery came out in 1997, it only made $67 million at the box office. Not bad considering it was made on a budget of $16 million, but when you compare it to how the sequels did, you can see an instant spike in numbers, as Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me made an insane $312 million in 1999, and Goldmember made a still very impressive $296 million in 2002. From memory, when Austin Powers came out in theatres here in Australia, there wasn't really much marketing or hype around it. It just sort of came and went, and no one was really talking about it. However, its popularity really grew and took off when it was released on VHS, and suddenly Austin Powers was this huge sensation, and I wonder if it was like that everywhere else too. Either way, thanks to the enjoyable comedy antics of Austin Powers, a new character was introduced into the mainstream pop culture, and Austin Powers was here to stay. Groovy, baby! I love this film. I think it came out when I was just the right age. So it really resonated with me, and I think it's easy to see why it's become one of the most quotable movies ever. And I think that the fact that Austin Powers is so out of his time oddly makes him timeless. Anyway, I'm Minty, and it's freedom, baby, yeah! See ya!